All right. Well,
Oh, I was
so
hoping
someone was recording it.
I
Oh,
thought it
well.
would be like how the West was won.
Yeah, it will be.
Panoramic view.
This meeting is being recorded for quality assurance and training purposes.
Yeah, definitely training purposes. All right. So, Don, we were just talking about what we needed to do for the road. I threw out the fact that whoever we get in isn't going to understand the road, and they're just going to put gravel down. There's a few places that are pretty bad that need more than just gravel. They need to be done correctly, which entails stone, fabric, and then gravel. So there's a few options that I threw out. One, we do the whole thing. It's going to be a lot of work and a lot of guesswork because we're not professionals. We don't do this all the time. But it'll be cheaper or ever. I have done some stuff with heavy equipment in the past. I, built a house, did driveways, worked with Bob Slumbo a fair amount when he was doing our house here. So I have a little bit of experience, but yeah, I'm not a pro. So
I'm saying for myself, or ever.
yeah, well, right. And, but then again, the cool thing would be getting to drive a bulldozer and stuff. I think that'd be
Yeah,
fun.
I would. I would totally be down with driving a bulldozer.
There you go. All right. 10 cents a drive. That's how we pay for the road. All right. So then the other option is we just bring in someone, get the road done up for the current winter, and then we get together more formally and make plans and we like pick the top 5 spots and work on those, and then we pick the next 5 spots and stuff, and then we can spread out the work, spread out the cost, and address them, and then we'll also get better at doing it. The first spot or two, we're going to be a little clueless, and we'll dig trenches too deep or not deep enough, and not order enough fill, and we'll have to get some more. But once we've done it once or twice, the rest will become a lot easier.
Skip, can I ask a question?
Of course.
So Dawn had put together some quotes from those two companies, Oyster River and somebody else.
Right. And
I take it those were vetoed?
No.
No.
We are going. That's one of the things on our agenda to talk about is they weren't vetoed. And
actually, one of the questions I had about those for you, Skip, is that where does our responsibility for the road end? Because both of those quotes take it all the way out to 155. But are we responsible to go from the top, where the sign says enter at your own risk to 155?
No, in fact, we would be encroaching on the property of the apartments. And
you hear it?
I mean, occasionally I want to, because I've bought them out way too often getting onto 155. Yeah. So I want to fill that in. Yeah. But it is not our property, so we don't have the right to do anything there.
I just broke it down on some of the existing quotes that I think one of them if I was just suggesting some notes that I had thought about of maybe working with the owner of those apartment buildings and allocating some of the costs so that we can have a complete road, but yet we're not incurring the cost and setting a precedent and then causing a problem maybe down the road. What if something happens and a contractor we hire doesn't do something right or backs into a car or whatever?
Exactly. Well, in theory, they're supposed to have insurance. So the fact that we hired them doesn't, if they're the ones who back into cars and stuff, that's still their responsibility. If we told them to dump the load of stone in a certain place and they dumped it on someone else's property and broke through their septic tank or something like that, yes, that would be our problem.
Yeah. I think Uta had a question a few times.
I was wondering, if we were to do it ourselves and everybody is well-intentioned and we are not as experienced as we all agree on, what if something happens and somebody has an accident? How would we carry insurance?
Since this is a private thing, and we're doing it kind of as a neighborhood and not as an official association at this point, it's up to the individuals to have their own insurance. Now, there is insurance that comes with the equipment, but you're right. If someone's running the bulldozer and they run someone over, then yeah, that's a problem. Which is yet another reason to go with someone else.
Skip, how about rental equipment? Don't they ask for insurance too?
Say that again?
Like when you rent the excavator, don't they ask you for insurance? Because I had a case where I had somebody in our neighborhood in Durham, and he rented an excavator for us, but he had to have insurance. It was like a handyman.
Yeah, so you can, like rental a car, you can rent and get insurance from the renters.
Oh, you can't get it from them.
Yeah, yeah. And so when I was talking to them and finding out how much the different things cost, I told them that we would probably need insurance. So yeah, because they do have some insurance, but it's like a $5,000 deductible or $10,000 deductible, something ridiculous. So if you want the full
Like
coverage,
catastrophic insurance only.
pretty much, yeah, yeah.
Say, Skip, Tony.
Yes, yeah. Hey, Tony.
Hi, have we approached the Lee Highway Department on that entrance to Northside Road? They have some responsibility there, or the state does, to match the road. You know, when they
Yeah, right. And I don't know, because Nicole said something to them, and I think someone else said something to them. Yeah, right. And
Just Skip,
Yeah.
some information on that. I talked to Karen down and she knows that, and people have gone through this. It's the state who's responsible for that. And that's,
so
she
when
gave
they
me
were,
a number to call, but I didn't call.
all right, if you
There'll
want
be a
to,
right of way, or there'll be a certain width beyond the roadway that is their responsibility.
right, and when they were paving, they were supposed to smooth that out, and they didn't.
Yeah, they
Whereas if,
filled it in, I think.
yeah, whereas if you go down to the either side of us, they did smooth it out. And across the street, they smoothed it out. Us, no.
yeah, well, it creates a safety hazard.
It does. Oh, it's ridiculous.
Oh, trying to pull out into the road from over there is terrible.
Yeah.
Even pulling in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had to go get gas with my plow, and I bent the shoe of my plow, and that was a quick $200 to get it fixed. So I was not a happy camper on that one. So yeah, I agree. And I mean, if we wanted to, we could talk to the guys, and they tried to do something last year. They threw some asphalty stuff down. You know, they got some buckets from Home Depot, but you know, three cars went through and it was all gone. So I think if we talk to them about it, we might be able to get an agreement where maybe we kick in a little bit, they kick in a little bit, and we make that area better. But it'd be good to also talk to the state. So Don, if you want to send that phone number around, and we can try to talk to the state.
Yep, I'll send it around. But who's? I mean,
Well, send it to the whole list, and then we'll figure it out.
All right, happy to do
Maybe
it.
everybody give them a call.
Well, yeah, there's also
It
that.
can't hurt.
In all honesty, really, I mean, the more squeaky wheels, the better, right? Why can't we all call them?
Yeah.
Good
Good
idea.
idea.
So, Laura, I was just looking, and it turns out you didn't attach the quotes on this. I thought you did, but it turns out it was the census. It wasn't the quote. So I will try to find the quotes from Dawn and then put them up.
Laura,
I
I
think
sent all the quotes to Laura, so she has them. So,
they may have gone out in another email too, not in the meeting one.
yeah. So anybody needs it, just let me know. I mean, I'm happy to send it again, but Laura does have them both.
I'd like to see them reconsidered to, I don't know if I just looked at it from just a square, per square foot straight across the board. I can't imagine that they're going to treat each square foot of the road equally, but if they do, that would be great. But like I said, both of those quotes do contain cost all the way to 155, and so by breaking each one down, I did send it an email, not the meeting email, but another one where I sent a spreadsheet. Each of the quotes was in the spreadsheet. There was a separate tab for each one, and then there was a quote tab with my notes, breaking down the additional cost from the top of our road to 155 that we wouldn't be responsible for. So just as a rough guesstimate, one of them, it was about just over $2,000 that would come off the cost to us.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's $100 a person, so, and I can tell you the boat that I'm in, that would sure make a difference.
Oh, definitely.
Well, can we get them to pay the $2,000 though?
Well, that would be the thing, and this is where it comes in. I'm going to kind of go into the next section of our agenda a little bit with forming committees. So it would be helpful to have different people step up to become part of these different committees so that we could say, okay, we can assign this task to this group and this task to this group. And then they can go off and collect the respective information. And then when we have a meeting, everybody come together with their pieces, kind of handle it like a business or a department or an organization. So we could have somebody that is, a group that, this committee is the operational committee for maintenance and, responsible for contacting the state or whatever. There's 4 or 5, 6 people on it, and that group is responsible for this set of tasks.
So I am sharing the agenda again, and since it's after 7 o'clock, we can actually move on to this idea of the committees, and then we can go back to the pricing afterwards. All right. So what Laura and I have talked about is that it would be nice to have some committees with at least 2, preferably 3 or 4 people, and we need 3 committees, I think, to do this correctly. A finance committee to sign contracts, collect money, pay bills, do the budgets, that sort of thing. A maintenance committee, which would go out and get the quotes, deal with the people when they're actually doing the work. That's down here, this maintenance committee one. And figure out how, if we're going to do stuff ourselves, how we're going to do it, that sort of thing.
Does
And
that
then-
include snow plowing?
No, nope, that's not a snowplow thing. The snowplow is sort of a ongoing thing, and Laura and I didn't really come up with where it should sit. She put in an ad hoc committee, which is set up something for snowplow, but since that's a good 4 to 6 month deal, and sometimes you have to really beat on people, it's more than just an ad hoc committee. So maybe it becomes part of the administration committee, or maybe we have a snowplow committee or winter maintenance committee, and which actually is probably a good idea. And also, by having a winter maintenance committee, if the people don't come or they're coming late, maybe there's a call, someone has to get out of their house, or something's coming on, someone can step up and quick run the plow down to their house just to get them out until the regular plow occurs. And then the administration committee is there to kind of help all the other committees, maybe step in if someone is unavailable, or needs to bow out of a committee because of new work commitments or whatever, health reasons, whatever. And try not to set up meetings like this and that sort of thing. So those were the kind of the ideas of it. I think, and I don't have a problem with people being on more than one committee. I think it might be a little much to ask someone to be on all the committees, and then also there may be some hard feelings if that happens. So I don't know. But anyways, that was the idea of committees, and I would like to hear people's view. And I can either leave this up or I can stop sharing so everyone can see everyone. Leave it up, stop sharing. I'll stop sharing, and if we need to look at it again, I can just bring it back up.
Is somebody gonna put up the quotes? Is somebody gonna find the quotes and put them up? Do we need
Well, let's talk about the committees first, and then, yeah, I just found the quotes, and then we'll put those up.
I can resend the email that was sent out with the quotes as well, if you want to keep it in the same email thread.
Yeah, that would be good.
'Cause it was sent out with together. It was a spreadsheet that had the quotes in it and the notes. It was all in one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. I just didn't know if we wanted to look at it now, if that would serve any purpose.
Well, we can, and we can push the committee stuff off. Whatever
No,
people
no, I'm
want to.
not saying that. I just, maybe after the fact. And the other question I had too, is there like 10 people missing now? From the road?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's always going to be people who won't show up. Like Bob Webb will probably never show
No,
up.
of course. I'm just trying to get a handle on when you're talking about committees and having 3 people on a committee. You know, what pool do we have? Is this the pool we have to pick from?
Well, at the moment, but you know, we can also talk to some of the other people, maybe, and we send out the recording and whatever, and they may.
Tony, I'll volunteer John for a committee because he's here, so I'll go next door and I'll tell him.
Yeah, there you go. You know, just
Good.
like we could throw Andy or Nicole on a committee because they're not here. So.
Always a risk. If you don't show up for a meeting, you wind up chairing a committee.
Exactly. You get all the action items.
I think it would be helpful because I think what's going to happen is I think it's helpful to maybe discuss or even informally put together some rough things now because we're going to have takeaways from this meeting and who's going to be responsible for those takeaways.
Right. Awesome.
So I think it would be helpful to get a sense of who would like to participate in what ways now. And it doesn't have to be a commitment, just kind of like, oh, I'd be willing to do this or to do that or whatever, I'd be willing to call the state or I'll be willing to talk to the contractor about modifying the quotes or, different things like that, or call and get pricing on certain things. I just think we're going to have a number of to-do items after this, and maybe we can just assign them and talk about, formalizing committees after. But I think from, at least a finance perspective, I would like to discuss the possibility of leveraging existing banking relationships and coming up with a DBA and having at least one other signer on an account.
Yeah, right. And I think the finance committee should come up with how they want to deal with the finances, and we can send out an email to everyone that this is the plan. If anyone has concerns, they'll have a couple days to respond. And I'm getting good echo. Excellent.
Probably Betty.
No, I'm in the basement. She's upstairs. So
I think the committee's a good idea, and I'll volunteer for probably the administration one. I'll be part of that.
I'd be fine helping with finance or maintenance.
Thank you.
Hold on. You're going too fast. So, which one did you say? Finance, maintenance, both?
For maintenance, I'm not sure you guys know, but I'm a commercial lender.
Yep.
So I know a lot of paving companies, and I was wondering if you are all set with the quotes that you have, or if you wanted somebody else to look at the road as well.
I think having another potential, well, I think one seemed pretty pricey, and I'm not sure the other one was going to actually be able to do what they think they were going to do. So maybe seeing getting another one or two would be good. We don't want to milk this too long though, because otherwise we'll be getting quotes in time for a snowplow, and it'd be nice to get this done, before
What's the time?
that summer ends.
I'd like to be able to make Venmo payments.
Say that
Yeah,
again?
and that's where I would like to be able to have an electronic, an account with bells and whistles that can be tied to Venmo, can be tied to PayPal, so that it's really easy for people to make their payments that way, without having to do, checks, paper checks, or things like that, or without me having to, funnel it through my PayPal into this one or into that one. I like the segregation.
Well, yeah, right.
And right now the account we have, it was kind of just handed down to me. When I got here, they just needed somebody to take over, and we went to the bank, and it was just a DBA handed over to me, and it was just the existing account holder that vouched that I was going to be the new account holder, and that's how they allowed the DBA to flow. There's no paperwork. So us having a DBA account just rests on the fact that I have a relationship with the bank, and they're allowing us to have a no-cost DBA because somebody handed it down to me. But we get nothing with that. We get a paper statement every month, and if we don't do transactions for a year, we get charged. And there's, you have to physically go to the bank for everything. So, and, I went one day, and it ate a couple of checks. And I had to wait for them to do the whole report. And I'm like, you know what, this is ridiculous.
Oh,
So I had just started doing the mobile deposit, and using my own account, and then they have a Make a Difference has my credit card on file, and I would just call them and say, okay, go ahead and charge for this quarter's, plowing installment or whatever. So I don't want to continue it that way. I would really like us to have, a DBA account for the business that can have Venmo, PayPal attached, and then also have somebody else on it, so that if we do have to go to the bank for some reason, there's someone else that can pay a bill or make a deposit or things like that on behalf of everybody on the road.
I'll be willing to help with that.
That would be awesome. I personally like to have 3 signers, not, just coming from a business perspective and, being SOX compliance and things like that, you always have multiple. 2 can collude in theory. So, not that 3 can't, but, it's less likely.
Right.
So, yeah, that would be great if Uta and Linda willing to, we could look into options on, maybe even a local credit union if they would give us something with bells and whistles without fees. If not, maybe we can leverage between us, different banks that we work with, leverage our personal relationships to open up a new account.
You may want to get some bylaws going and get an incorporation going, because ultimately you're putting yourself at risk, and everybody else as well, by having somebody else's money basically under your social security number.
Well, so there are pros and cons of some kind of corporation, whatever, but you can do it as an association, which would be similar to a partnership or something. But we would ultimately need an agreement that people sign as to how it works. So whether or not we do the costs in the pain of a
Annual filing and a fee to.
yeah, and some kind of corporation, or we just do an association partnership with an agreement. And that's one of the things that I would like the committees to start talking about, and so we can start coming up with an approach. It's not something we can solve here, but I would like to, particularly the finance and administration committees would be good to talk about it, but then anyone can chime in on this. I mean, this is an important subject on how we do it.
Yeah, one of the things I verbally spoke with a land lawyer who, no charge, but just verbally spoke with him, and he asked me how the road was going. I said, well, we haven't done anything yet. He said, well, the two things he recommended, which is before a road association, is actually a road maintenance agreement, which can be written up relatively easy. And we have, I have an example and I can send it around to folks. And on that road maintenance agreement, all we have to do is sign it and say, yeah, we agree, we're going to share the cost of that road maintenance. The other thing is that he strongly suggested that it be equally, and he gave me a good explanation as to why it should be equally as opposed to any other fairness evaluation. And that, based on it being equally, is because the road is actually an easement to all properties. And what you are paying for is that easement. You're not paying for anything else, you're paying for that easement, basically. So that any and all people who utilize the road, whether they use it or not, the number of times, whatever length they're at, or what have you, or whatever the valuation, that is the reason why. And it made
Well,
sense to me after he mentioned that.
yeah, so there's that. There's also the concept, if you're paying less, if you're paying half, do you get half a vote? You know, and then that's gets to be a political nightmare. So I agree that if
Yeah. Vote should equal the contribution.
well, that, I mean, that is one thought, but you know, it can go different ways, and it can get ugly pretty quickly. So
Agreed, and I think that equally, the other thing about equally that a number of people gave opinions on and had, it did come out about half equally and half based on valuation, but so that I don't think there's a big disparity between the two possibilities, but as an easement, it makes sense in that everybody should contribute. And all it takes is for people to sign the road maintenance agreement.
right.
It doesn't take a whole bunch of official things that, like an EIN number and all the other things that I mentioned in the
You can have a contract on a napkin. I mean, as long as you get both parties in agreement, or whatever parties are involved in agreement,
exactly, yeah.
sign it, then it's legally binding. So, you know, we don't have to incur the cost of, I mean, a not-for-profit is just, you know, I don't know if any of you have filed a not-for-profit tax return. I have. I'm not willing to do it. It's a pain in the neck. And it's unnecessary for our purposes. We're not raising money. We're not doing fundraisers. We're not, you know, our establishment is more of a DBA type. It's not, you know, and we can easily handle any legal issues and monetary issues with agreements throughout the group. You know, business agreements and arrangements are made through electronic signatures and email all the time. So, you know, I think that we can pretty easily come up with a majority. We can, you know, have meeting minutes. We can show that we have made our best attempt at implementing some kind of organization and structure to our group. And as long as we can show that and show that we've made agreements that, you know, the majority of people agree to, then, and then in accordance with any laws like Skip had shared, you know, about how private roads are to be maintained, and it's to be shared equally amongst everyone on the road.
Well, equitably, but yes.
Equitably, sorry, equally, equitably. However, it's worded, but it will show that we are trying to be in accordance with laws that are out there, and then we have something that we can also fall back on.
So Dawn, what happens if not everyone signs a paper saying they agree to maintain the road?
So according to the New Hampshire law, that if a majority, and I'm not sure if it was just a majority or if it had to be like 60% or something like that, but if some majority of the people on the road agree to the way that the road is set up, then it kind of becomes the de facto law on the road, and the people have to participate or they're basically trespassing on the right of way.
I believe it's 2/3, Skip.
Is it 2/3? Yeah.
66%, yeah.
Yeah, all right. That makes sense. So us 2/3 say, well, Bob Webb's not here, so he has to pay for all the maintenance. That seems equitable. But yeah, so anyways, once we get to the proper majority, then it becomes enforceable. Now, people can still refuse to pay, but then we can actually bring them to small claims court and that sort of thing.
So, Don, the lawyer that you talked to, was he not recommending a road association, just having a maintenance agreement?
No, it's just that he felt that we definitely need a road maintenance agreement
Mhm.
that people sign up for. After that, in terms of the road association, that's up to the people on the road. So
There used to be a standard letter that went out every year that kind of stated, you know, we as an association every year do such and such, and this is the time of year that we go around and collect, you know, X amount of money for grading and things like that. So it wasn't something that everybody signed, but it was something that was communicated, you know, either sent in an email, or prior to that, when I used to go door to door or stuff everybody's mailbox with flyers.
Right. Yep.
You know, but it showed an intent to have some kind of formalized agreement, and it also showed that there historically had been an agreement. You know, I have the history of checks that were paid from, you know, people that are long since gone and everything now, but you know, so there is something there to show that intent. And again, it's, you know, if you've got that to show, you know, and you've got a majority of people that are paying for ongoing road maintenance, just our history itself with, you know, spreadsheets that I've sent out, quotes that I've sent out, and payments that people have made. I've kept all the copies of checks with everything. So it clearly shows an intent to have an organized association agreement on maintaining the road. And it also shows the intent of the number of people who want to participate in that. So I think already we have a leg to stand on to show a majority of people support equitably financing the maintenance on the road and the plowing on the road. So I mean, I think from, you know, a legal standpoint, we already have that to show.
'Cause it does seem like it would benefit every property owner to have some sort of a formal road association, so that if somebody was selling their property, there would be a sense of assurance to the person buying property that there is this organization that's taking care of it, since it is a private way.
Banks
Yeah.
and real estate agents will contact me. Basically, it depends on the bank and it depends on the situation as to what's required for that. In the past, you know, I've let people know if you need paperwork for the road, you have to be up to date on your contributions. So for different real estate agents have contacted me through email and only needed information or a confirmation. You know, just a very loose, hey, we do have a loose association, we do have ongoing maintenance, we do have a contractor that comes and plows. So they really just look for somebody from an association to let them know that yes, we do have agreements and we do collect money and we do together as a group. So I've communicated to a number of banks. Some banks want something, a piece of paper that states that. Others just simply want an email.
It's not, I can tell you, I'm a realtor, I can tell you it's not a requirement, but the bank can ask for anything they want. And I agree, it puts them as far as the buyer goes to know that it's being taken care of.
Yeah, and if we have an agreement or a form that we can provide for that, again, through an administrative committee, the finance committee, we have something that shows a collective that we can provide that documentation. We've already done it. We have that ability to do it today. All right, so let's see. Ad hoc. So do we want to, what do we want to cover in terms of pricing? Do we want to get some more quotes and maybe have Don ask the guys that you talked to, well, I'm getting the sense that maybe only one of them is viable, Oyster River. Is that a fair thing to say?
Well, let me pull them up. So I just had them too.
I think both of them are viable. It's not that. It's both of them live in Lee, and both of them in talking with Karen over at the building code office. She said both are very, very good, and they are responsible. So I think either one that we would feel comfortable with. The thing I felt more comfortable with Oyster River is he was more specific about the type of gravel he was going to be using. He has shown the ability to operate the equipment if we go ahead. So I've always felt that you hire a professional to do things that you are not trained to do. So that's why I was thinking either one. There was one other one somebody had given, I think, given me a name, and I tried to call him, but he never responded. So the more, I think we should always continually try to get additional people.
And
Don, I kind of agree with you. You should hire a professional. The thing I have a problem with is that neither of these two companies seem to be focusing on the roads like we have. It's a fairly long road with 1 mile, and I'm more convinced after I had this guy over today where I said, like, I can't do that. And that's the guy who is doing small dirt roads. And I'm a little afraid that we just get something similar we got 2 years ago. We get a lot of gravel. They come in, get the gravel, and then in a year or two, it's all gone. I think we should look at a paving company or a company which is really doing maintenance of a dirt road like this.
Oyster River Construction actually used to work on this road 10 to 15 years ago. I don't remember the date.
I have their paperwork.
Okay, so,
I do have the
you do?
paperwork.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how well he did it before, but the other one I don't think had given as much detail.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt
All right,
more
so Oyster
inclined.
River was looking at bringing in 600 yards of 1.25 inch gravel. That's what this 43 truckloads of 14 yards each. Farrell was talking about using 1,000 yards or almost 1,200 yards of material. But again, he's talking 1.5 inch gravel. Now he is talking a thicker layer, 6 inches across the whole road would be pretty impressive. But we're also talking $40,000 versus 26,000. It looks like 27,000.
Can we ask them about putting down that material you were talking about?
We can, but you really need to put just gravel down. I mean, stone down first, and then the fabric. And in order to do that, there's a few areas where they would have to dig out, put the stone in, put the fabric down, and then do the gravel. And if we do that, because that becomes fairly labor intensive, or at least time intensive, the prices would go up significantly.
Skip, just to point out too, when you look at the road, he estimated 10-foot wide road and said 4 inches thick. Our road is 10 foot only wide. I mean, in places it's way wider. So,
yeah, right.
In a lot of places there may be an inch or something like this on it, and that's really not making a big difference either, right? So.
Right. So this is what I was talking about. And with 100 yards of the stone and 100 yards of the gravel, this only does 5 critical areas. And it's, if we were gonna do this, the rentals, if you were to rent the truck for any of this heavy equipment for 3 days or longer, it's cheaper to rent it for a week. So it's like $400 a day, but it's $1,100 for a week for like the backhoe I was looking at, or I think it was $500 a day, or $1,600 for a week for a bulldozer. So if we decided to do that, and we wanted to do the whole road, I talked to the stone company up in Rochester, who was the stone for our big pit area, and is also supplies the stone to Bob Sherwood and the other one out on 155. And I'm blanking on it now. But anyways, those landscaping companies. And the landscaping companies will charge $22 a yard, and then they do a delivery fee. Talking to the guy at the pit itself, he was charging $14 a yard, and then I think it was $16 a yard delivered. So, which is why I'm saying it's going to be cheaper if we did it.
So I don't know how much it costs. I asked Newmarket Sand and Gravel, and he said it's about $300 a truckload, which I think is 16 yards.
14 yards.
Yeah, I think they have different. Yeah, I think 14 or 16 yards. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember before we went.
I got from them before for $300, $340. So that.
Yeah. Before we went with Sam from BDC, we had talked to the quarry directly as well, and they had said based on our road needs what they thought the amount of gravel that we would need, we'd come directly from them, would be, to do the road the right way was around $40,000.
Huh. Then either the prices dropped and then went back up. I talked to him in late March, I think, was when I first started. Yeah, oh no, early March. So this was I sent out this email on the 4th, so it was probably actually late February when I was starting to talk to him and calling around. And since not much was going on then, maybe it's cheaper in the winter and early spring than in the summer. But yeah, he was quoting $14.50 a yard for either 3/4 inch or 1.5 inch gravel, and $18 a yard for 3/4 inch stone.
Is it a possibility with any of these contractors, and Heiner and Don, you'd know better, you've talked with them directly, is there cost savings to us, and is it possible for us to get the material directly from the quarry and have them come and do the labor for us? Kind of like a little from column A, little from column B. We don't do the work, but we get the material in bulk, and then we ask them to come and do the work for us.
Well, so they are getting a fee. Cost per yard delivered, 25,000. I think that was a.
Oh, that's for all of us before.
Yeah, no, right, I know. So hold on one second. Let me do a little math here.
I think we need to look at an engineer on figuring out the most effective and affordable way of doing the road before we hire contractors.
That's a good point. Do you know anybody?
All right.
Plenty
Well,
of people out there. I
Get
think
some
it would
engineers.
be money that was well spent. Probably get someone to do it, for $400 or $500, I would guess, to give us a good plan of attack, on the affordable side. or on the high-end side, and what the road actually needs.
No, I'm good right now.
Oyster River construction was actually a recommendation by MJS Engineering out of Newmarket. He's a road engineer. He said everybody else, and he tried to contact a couple of people. Other than that, they were too busy to even consider it. Charlie Garnett was one that he would recommend as probably the best, but he was only doing part-time and only people he knew already. So
Oh, yeah.
I think if we want to get moving on this, I think we need a professional that can go ahead and one of the questions I did ask to get everybody's opinions was how many are willing to work on the road, and it was about 6 people with 9 total doing a little bit of raking or this and that. So just a little more information for people to take into account.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion to have a professional take care of fixing the road than us doing it.
And actually, Tony
Me
knows
also.
we had somebody do some driveway work, and he also can do road work, except he couldn't do this road because he doesn't have a driver that would be available to him. And he gave us about the $40,000 ballpark figure for that as well.
So when I look at Oyster River versus Jay Farrell is quoting for delivered stuff $21.60 per yard, and Oyster River was $20.60 per yard. So I mean, right there, Oyster River is taking either they have a cheaper place that they're getting the gravel from, or they're taking a smaller cut. And if Oyster River is highly recommended, if we can get them in, it may be worth bringing them in and doing another talk with them and find out when they can do it. But we can also see if we can find anyone else.
So, Don, would Oyster River be able to maintain the road next year too, or is it just I fix the road and then afterwards we still have to look for somebody to grade it?
That I don't know. We didn't discuss that. It was to get the road up to be repaired, not to maintain. And that's where
that's really the issue I see with Oyster River is we hire them to get the road repaired, but then he's away and we kind of still have to find somebody who's maintaining it year after year. And
right.
That's where my problem is. If we need somebody to grade the road next year, I rather find the one who is doing it next year and have him fix the road now, so he's doing it and not coming in next year saying, "Oh, the other guy did a bad job," and
right.
then we're stuck in between and then spend another.
Well, and that's another thing we could talk to Oyster River about is, will they be able to come back the year after? I'm suspecting we're going to need gravel added over the next couple of years, particularly since Oyster River is only looking at putting it down 600 this go round. And I agree with Farrell's assessment of 1,000 yards plus total will ultimately needed on this thing. That Oyster River could probably come in, get us up and running for this year, and then come back next year and make it a little bit better. And then the third year, we should get to the point where it's nice. And then it becomes much easier to maintain because we have a good gravel base on the road.
And it did seem like Farrell also offered us to kind of just do partially right now this year and then come back year after year, which I think that's a better way than do it all now and then what's next year.
Right.
And we could see how that works, right? Like just
yeah, and especially if we decide let's get this thing done, but we really do want to do the really bad spaces correctly, and we decide we're going to go rent a bucket load of backhoe and dig it out, put in stone, put in the felt, and then put in gravel over it. Then we can do that, you know, as an ongoing thing. And doing 1 or 2 spots is a one-day thing. We only need to rent the equipment for 1 day, and we just get it done, and then move on for you know, the next year we come up with the next set of priorities. But I think in some respects, I think that's the best way to do it, because if we wanted to do it right this year, we're never going to get anyone in to do it. And I know my time is going to start getting limited. Hopefully I'll be starting a new job in a few weeks, and then my time becomes really limited. Otherwise, I'd be, you know, working this now, but not having a job makes spending a bunch of money a little iffy. So anyways, with all that said, I think we should get someone in, get it worked on immediately, and then get the committees together to come up with plans, the top 5 hit list, and we start figuring out how to address them one by one.
One other question on the Oyster River estimate. Did that go from the road or just from the beginning where the sign is? And it only needs to go up to number 68 because the rest of the road doesn't need to be done.
It goes all the way to 155, Tony. That was the one that I think I had said just on a cost per square yard, or I'm trying to click on the spreadsheet and I'm not the one with it open. But it was around $2,000 that was potentially allocated to the section of the road by the apartment buildings.
Okay, so it was that
Oh
was
yeah, here. This is what you're talking about, right, Laura?
Right. I just did kind of, you know, an average, because I don't know how they priced it. If they're, you know, if there's, well, there's more work on this section, so I would charge more to do this versus that. But just on a basic cost per linear foot, that quote came to $6.70. There's 379 linear feet from the apartment building, like from the top of the road to the 155. So that comes out to $2,500 of that quote. That really isn't our responsibility.
But Laura, I don't think he considered to do anything on that portion because it's paved. I think when he gave the quote, he was just considering starting behind the pavement. That's what I read in the quote. So
well, the length, the amount of linear feet on the quote is from 155 all the way down to 68. I just, from prior quotes and working with prior contractors, and also based on the snow plowing contract, our road, Northside Road, is actually 0.7 of a mile. It's not the 4,075.
I don't think that was, yeah, whatever. We'll figure it out if what he really planned on doing. I don't think that he planned on doing on a paved section.
That was how I got from it. I'd rather not assume. I'd rather know. That way when we're comparing quotes, we're comparing apples to apples, and that the contractors are aware of what part of the road we're responsible for, because it has been asked of me on several occasions, and even after answering it, you know, like Make a Difference sees the no trespassing sign on at the end of my driveway and doesn't plow the end of the road. So I just think it's important to be clear with the contractors what we're paying for, what we're responsible for, and then when we're comparing quotes, that we absolutely know that this contractor is talking about this section of road, this one's, you know, talking about the same.
Right. So, and Farrell's quoting a mile as opposed to 0.7 of a mile. So
right, they both are. So that's why I believe they both are.
No, so OCR was 4,075 feet.
Starts down by 155.
Yeah.
But that is the same as a mile.
No. Yeah, but when we
mile
walked
is 5,280. See.
Okay.
When we did walk the road, he actually measured it with his wheel, and that's where the 4,075 feet came. And he did not go down to 155. He only went to the top where the sign is. Enter at your own risk.
ORC or Farrell?
Well, it says by 155.
Oyster River.
Yeah,
and
so right.
And I think no matter what, before it gets completed, whoever is on the maintenance committee and before he actually comes in and does it, can go ahead and discuss the specifics, because the other portion that needed to be discussed with them, which was not discussed initially, was 20 through 24. And
right.
they have indicated that they want to make sure that some of that road is done.
Right.
And
That was
Julian
not
also,
too bad, but yeah, right.
Julian was also concerned because all prior maintenance never reached his area. So that was what his concern was. So just for the maintenance committee to know.
Carol and Larry have expressed a similar thing, that by the time it gets down to them, there isn't much for gravel or anything else, left. And we have had prior, like with BDC, prior confusion as to where the bulk of the gravel was supposed to be laid and how it was supposed to be used, and
Right.
that sort of thing. So I think it's just important for us to know what we're paying for and I think it's important that the contractor knows, what we need them to do.
Yep, I agree. So if going back to Laura's notes, so if we're not going to be able to take the 2,500 off of the RC quote, and if they didn't include going down to the right there at the bottom of the hill, then it might even be another 2,500. So
We probably need a revision from them.
right. Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to say. So,
and then do we want to ask them about, maybe a plan like Tony had mentioned, if they have that surveying or engineering background, as part of this process, they give us a plan, sort of an intended, like a scope of the work and a recommended, here's where we're going to pitch and how much, beyond the scope, beyond the quote rather. Whatever an civil engineer would provide, are they able to provide that same kind of documentation for us? Like where Skip was talking about where we might need some cloth, maybe in certain areas we need that, maybe in others we don't. Is there, I guess I'm wondering if ORC can give us some feedback on that, and if they're able to do kind of an engineering plan as part of the work.
There you go.
Laura, looking at what I get in quotes when I do financing, you're easily paying $5,000 to $10,000 for an engineering quote, especially on a road that long. And the other thing is they probably want to see some kind of a measuring, where the road exactly is, because right now I think we might be on the one or the other property, because it's much wider than the 10 feet in certain areas. So I'm wondering if that money is well spent.
Almost too many options.
Well, I mean, yeah, we definitely need to do something. I think that there's definitely benefit to having, some input from somebody from an engineering perspective. I agree with that.
Yeah, but I tried to get an engineer last, and he charged me $140 an hour, and it took me a year to get somebody. So I don't see big engineering work for that road. I think I don't think we can expect much from these excavation companies to give us in terms of engineering. I don't think we need that really for the road. I think it's good if that's what they're exactly doing. and how much gravel they put down.
Well, they have done, I believe they did culvert work for us, for this road, back in the day. I'll have to go pull out the documents, see what they did, but I know that there was some, like a list of recommendations and some other paperwork. I'll see if I can pull out and see what they provided before.
Part of our problem here is we've asked 3 different contractors to give us their own opinions about how to fix things, and so they each are taking a design build approach, and they've each given their own opinion on it. And to backtrack from that and do a full engineering study would be as expensive as the work in some respects, because we don't have a proper survey of the road. I mean, for a civil engineer to do a real analysis of this road and to do a real set of documents for competitive bidding that would be apples to apples comparison, they need a survey. They need to have a variety of details for various treatments, and it would be very expensive. So in many respects, if we're seeking a design build contractor to do something, there just has to be a certain level of trust and the ability to have an ongoing relationship with them. And from everything I've heard, it seems like Oyster River would be the one that would provide that greatest level of trust for us. But you know, we aren't starting from an engineering standpoint, and I think that to start from that standpoint would be legitimately expensive, because they need base documents that would be expensive to create. I mean, how would one survey this road? Right?
Don, you're kind of like right, and I'm an engineer, so I can talk to that.
Yeah.
Mechanical engineer, not a civil engineer. But the thing
and I'm an architect, so I deal with this as well. You know, contractors on design build basis versus an architect.
But I think we are gonna be looking for is people who maintain roads like we do have, right? And I'm not seeing necessarily there, and that's kind of why I'm a little skeptical with guys. I don't know them, you know. They may be the greatest guy, and I believe that, you know. I mean, I believe Don had a good relationship with them. I just don't know with a road like this, what's really necessary. And I really like to see somebody who is a long-term relationship and then keeps the road in good shape. And all I heard, everybody I talked to is telling me you need a big grader to do this road, no matter how much gravel we put on there. And I haven't seen anybody right now. I mean, $25,000 is kind of like a lot of money. And if they don't have a grader, I'm not sure if we get really a big improvement as we all hope to get. And I did, you know, I did talk to Karen Rossi as well, and there's another road in Lee actually, which is Osby Lane and Owl Lane, and I did actually drive them down. They're in really fairly good shape. And I do have a contractor, but the contractor lives on the road, so I assume that he is maintaining the road there. We could contact.
There's another thought, and it's this is it's not anchored in any kind of facts, but the person that used to come and do the road, that used to bring the grader down, you know, he didn't really add anything to it, but he had the big equipment. He, what was his name? AJ, I have it somewhere. But it was just a cheap job to him. And I think it was just because he was willing to do it cheap, but they had to, you know, Paul Barry had to like nag him to get him to come down. And he would come down that one time, like, you know, before, I think it was before July 4th or around July 3rd. And the theory is that we weren't really a priority. He was just willing to, he's a contractor for the town of Madbury, that he was just willing to come down and do the job for cheap, kind of to pity on us type of thing, but we didn't really have any meaningful work for him. I don't know if maybe he's an option of talking to him and saying, you know, listen, we're looking for engaging in a meaningful relationship with a contractor to kind of take ownership of the road from repairs through grading. You know, and we're not looking to cheap out on it anymore. We're looking to have the job done right. Would you come down and give us a quote? might be worth it to reach out to him because he's got the equipment that you're referring to.
And I think we had a better boat at that time than we have now. So, and I'm happy to reach out to him. That's
Okay, I'll get his contact information and send it out and let you have a chat with him, see if maybe you can get somewhere on that front.
Oyster River did say he has access to a grader. That is not the problem. He said, you don't want to grade this road right now. There's not enough of a base, even grade. And it has a lot of places where ledge is showing. So I agree. We want a long-term relationship with somebody who can do it. And both of them said they were willing to be that person. They both live in Lee. I'm just, you know, we're already 2 months into this, and we could talk it to death. So,
and we can just spend the money and not getting any road improvement too. That's okay. I mean,
understood. But
I think we'll ought to do our groundwork there and do our research before we get.
I agree, and that's where the maintenance team can go ahead and take it over and do it. I've provided what I can. Thank you.
And I appreciate that. I think that's yeah. It's I'm not trying to critique you or whatever. I just think we'll have to take our time and find the right way.
Is it fair to say that if we don't do something very soon, that we're not going to be able to get any of these companies to come and do anything this year?
It's a possibility, yes, because it's been 2 months since, and I did call Oyster River probably after the first email and before the second one, and asked him, and he said, well, you know, the gravel pit's not open right now, but I can contact them and get ready. I said, well, it depends on what, you know, money's come in, because Laura had indicated, and I agree with her, that until some money comes in, we can't even think about contracting anybody. So that's why my second email was to encourage people to send money to Laura so that we at least have something to work from. So,
I think we have to have an amount that is in accordance to our previously agreed upon equitable sharing of road maintenance. And I think we have to have a concrete amount to work with before we can actually collect money, because then we're going to have some people who are overpaying, some people who are underpaying. And I mean, we always have people that are underpaying, but I just think that we need a little bit more, you know, information or more. I mean, we have other areas of the road, like you said, that haven't been considered yet. So we might not have the full amount that we have to work with yet. We don't know if we have some that we can take away, or we might just have more that we have to add to take care of the additional easement.
No, I just, when you did that.
So I think what we need is a revised quote from Oyster River. I'm perfectly fine going with someone that's recommended by the town of Lee. You know, it sounds like they're kind of the maybe more experienced, or, you know, gave us a little bit more detail on a quote, but I think we need a revised quote, and then, you know, we don't know when he can start the work. Like you said, if the quarry's closed, it might not even have anything to do. We could collect all the money tomorrow and we still might not be able in a position to have the work started. So I guess there's that too.
Well, I am for getting something decided today so that we can get the ball rolling and get something done to this road, because it's pretty bad. I'm more than willing to send in whatever I have to send in for money, as long as everybody else is on board with that as well.
Will it be possible to clarify if Oyster River is going to have a grader and also will be willing to maintain the road in the future, Don?
Mm-hmm.
If your voice isn't coming over.
Oh, I was wondering, Dawn, if you got the Oyster River quote, correct?
yes.
Yes. So is it possible that you could clarify with her if he would be willing to maintain the road in the future, so that he is going over with the grader, and that we could, if he is getting the contract now, that he would be willing to maintain the road in the future and grade.
Sure, I think if you're asking me if I'm willing to call him, I'm willing to call him and ask those two questions specifically. And I can easily tell him that, you know, we've had a meeting and people are eager to get moving, but there are some concerns and these are it.
Yeah, maybe you can give a budgetary quote for what it would cost to maintain the road next year with a grader or the following years, just as a budgetary.
Yep.
Skip, we're still not hearing you.
Thank you, Dawn.
All right, so is it fair to say then that we can clarify a couple pieces of information with the Oyster River? How much of the road they're covering, if they're actually covering all the way up to 155. And then also they don't need to go down past Tony Durante's place because he's got that squared away. And then the section down by the Pale Airs and the Hanleys there, that additional section of road, if that has to be added and what needs to be done over there to get that square. And then maybe just give us a revised quote based on those clarifications, as well as including spring maintenance. You know, what do they, here's what they can do potentially before the winter, and then here's what's recommended for the spring and what that cost is going to be.
Have they said anything about any kind of guarantees or how long these repairs would last?
For this road, it's probably 10 minutes.
As soon as they got the check, they're gone. I don't think anybody can guarantee for that one, right? I don't know. That's why I like to have somebody who stays with us and
owns the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, I don't really need a guarantee, but did he suggest how long it would last? You know, did he say, you know, this should do you for a couple of years? Or is it just a repair that's gonna last through this winter?
The inference from both of them was that this would bring the road back up to what it needs to be for normal maintenance, whatever that may be. So
yeah, that's not bad.
It was not just to go into this winter.
I mean, it is a dirt road, right? So I think we need to all understand it's a dirt road, and there's a lot of traffic there, much more than we had 10 years ago, probably. And we may at some point need to grade it twice a year, right? So it's.
What about paving?
I do like the idea of having one contractor do the repairs and do the maintenance, and like you said, because then, you know, it's less people being involved on touching the road, and like you said, you don't have a disparity between, well, if I did it, then I would have done it this way, and vice versa.
So. Right, and it's his business to fix the road and maintain it. He's gonna do the fix, so it is gonna be.
He'll set himself up for maintenance. He'll, yeah. No,
Hey,
I agree. Plus, it'd be nice to have only, you know, the one or two contractors to deal with.
Laura, is the bank account basically empty at this point?
There's $50 in there.
Okay, and we owe Dawn 2,000. Is that the deal?
Yes, about what, 1950 or change. I have the number. Yeah. Yeah, that was something else I wanted to discuss, because we also have to incorporate that into the, you know, the cost of what we're talking about, because there's an additional $2,000, and none of us should be leveraged to the road for that. You know, I had the monkey of a plow truck payment hanging on my back when I first got here, and it's just, I don't think any of us should be in that position.
Right.
You know, I
think we also need to collect a little extra for emergencies and overruns and whatever. So
my concern is are we having, how many people are not participating as far as sending money in and contributing to the road? I know in the past you've put together a thing where we say, well, we got to all send in $300, and I was under the impression that everybody was, or maybe there are a couple of people that weren't. Is it safe to say that most people are contributing, or the vast majority of people are contributing?
I would say the vast majority of people are contributing. Yeah, I would typically send out the spreadsheet with, you know, everybody's, you know, their name and everything on the left and their amount and check and all that on the right. There are, you know, some people that consistently don't contribute anything. Bob Webb practically gave me a paper cut, ripping this $100 bill out of my hand just 2 years ago when I said we were trying to collect 500, not 100. He has not paid anything. I do have the contact information for Kat Wren's brother. He's handling, you know, any kind of bills or payments of things on her behalf. So I do tend to get money from him for plowing and things like that. If I have a concrete amount, he will send it in PayPal. So I have sent him a request, like for winter time, I'll send him a request, or if like when we decide on, you know, maintenance and what that's going to cost, then I can send him a request, and he's been responsive that way. So, which historically we haven't gotten payment for that residence. So that's good. But I think for the most part, yeah, we typically have full, you know, 90% anyway.
Dawn, you had sent something out earlier that said, are you willing to pay $1,000 now and then another 500 in the fall? Was that assuming that everybody was going to pay, or that just the people that traditionally pay?
I think Laura had indicated that about 20 people total pay, so it was based on that. And it was just to, again, to see, because some people right now, I only got 5 responses to the second email, and that's fine. 4 said they'd be willing to send money right now, but the 5th is unemployed and not able to send any money. So there will be some, and it may even be less this year because of the circumstances of COVID-19. So,
But I'm guessing based on that, then, that the possibility of hiring either one of those 2 companies is virtually nil, because if only 5 people respond, only 4 of them said they were willing to pay, then you're basically looking at working with $4,000, and that's just $5,000, and that's not going to get it done.
Right.
well,
But
what I found is it takes a couple emails to get people to respond because
yeah, and I mean, that's one of the ideas of these committees is if we have a committee and we have quotes, going house to house and saying, we need some money to get this road done. This is how much it is. Here's the quote. You can talk to these committees. Here's the committee information. And hopefully we can get more people involved and willing to work with us. And, you know, if not, I will accidentally drop a tree in front of you.
I think maybe
Honey, quick, send a check.
I can say, you know, for myself, from a financial perspective, you know, in the past, I haven't had a problem writing my check. This time around, I have a problem writing my check. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I think maybe what might be a nice middle ground for right now would be to maybe tend to the hot spots, so that we have a plowable surface and we have a road that isn't, you know, going to eat any more vehicles, if at all possible. And then, you know, maybe see how things look, you know, next spring, that maybe we could, you know, do more to the road. Maybe we're in a financially better position. You know,
So
I don't.
If we want to do that, then that sounds like something we should do, in which case it's, and if we're only doing hotspots, it's one day, about 150 yards, maybe 200 yards worth of material in a backhoe bucket loader, and we just spread it around, back drag it, and hit those hotspots, and we're good. And that would be $4,000 or $5,000.
So I hate the idea of spending $5,000, $6,000, whatever, to put a Band-Aid on it, and then having to come around again next year and look at another $26,000, $30,000 to do it right, because that Band-Aid really didn't do anything long lasting. But I'm also guessing that we just don't have the financial ability to really hire either one of these companies.
So
So I almost think that we're in a situation where we have to go with the Band-Aid approach this year and hope things get better next year.
yeah,
Yes.
I agree with you, Tony. And I mean, Laura, how much did we spend on the guy who never showed up and everything?
Oh,
Was
the
that-
one I had to chase down and threaten to take to small claims, and I found out his girl for the company was in his girlfriend's name, and
Yeah,
checked her
yeah,
down.
yeah, all that good stuff.
Yeah,
That
that one.
was what, 12,000 or something?
Oh no, that was like 17,000.
Yeah,
That was
17,000.
16,500, I think.
And that ended up
That
It
was
was
not doing,
miserable. We didn't get anywhere near what we were told we were going to get from that.
well, not only that, but whatever they did and stuff, it didn't last. I mean, in the spring, it was all gone. So doing the hotspots, probably doing a little bit better than what they did, and doing it cheaper, can't be any worse than what we just suffered through, and it'll probably be better.
Tony, I think $5,000 a year for maintenance we need anyhow, right? I mean, I wouldn't call it bad. We need some money for maintenance, and
But it's
$5,000 you probably have to spend anyhow. So.
But it's $5,000 to fix it plus whatever we have to do for maintenance on a regular basis, plus plowing and so on. and
Well,
so forth.
so this Band-Aid $5,000 is hitting 5 or 6 bad spots. That doesn't mean, I mean, in order to really get the road right, we need a good 4 to 6 inches of fill the whole length, of gravel the whole length. And that's
I agree.
somewhere around 700 to 1,000 yards. And that's where you're talking 25, 30, maybe even $40,000. So the Band-Aids aren't going to do that. I mean, just to go out and us to buy 1,000 yards of loam gravel is somewhere north of $20,000. And then to spread 1,000 yards is a 3-day job. I mean, just to get the 1,000 yards delivered is going to take 3 or 4 days. So that means we're renting equipment for a whole week. We have to get at least a good bulldozer to push that much gravel around, and now we're up at $25,000, and that's us doing it. So the fact that someone's going to come in for $28,000 and are professionals, that's probably not too bad.
But can we get $28,000 together?
No, it doesn't look like it. I mean, people are out of work. When we go back to work, are we going to be full-time, part-time? Company's going to demand pay cuts. We just don't know what's going to happen. This has been one of those once-in-a-century type of events. And so doing the Band-Aid for now, hit the 5 or 6 really bad spots, may get it so that we can plow it in the winter, and we're not breaking axles and stuff right now. And then next year, we can look at how do we do it? Is everyone rich? Can we then afford the biggie? Do we do sections? Do we do more Band-Aids? And that's where we start getting committees can start talking, coming up with different plans, and then present the plans to people and have it more planned out, and have more answers available. Because right now we're doing a lot of guessing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if we
Skip,
do
but
it that way, we know what's going to be happening. We can get them planned to come in and scheduled to come in
Right.
early versus who knows when we'll get them this year.
Right.
I think we're almost in a position where we have to go with Skip's proposal. I'm willing to work on and help out in any way, shape, or form I can, as far as labor. And apparently somebody has a truck license that they can do the driving and go get the gravel. And is that accurate?
Yes, but
Yes, and he's unemployed right now too.
and he is unemployed right now.
Okay.
So
And Jerry just left, so I'm going to volunteer him because he's around.
right.
All right.
So I can start seeing about getting equipment. I don't know if the equipment is still available. because as things pick up, these rental places rent out to the big companies who, get, they only have so much equipment and they have to then go rent when they have a big job. So I will find out. So let me, I'm
I
starting
can
to take,
drive a lot of that equipment also.
say that again?
I can drive a lot of that equipment, and I
Awesome.
have a very flexible schedule.
Cool.
I can help too.
Hey, and I have a golf cart and a little bucket that goes behind it. So
Excellent.
Well, I'm just going to sit in front of Linda's screen and enjoy the waves.
yeah,
I
I want to thank
Disappears.
I want to thank Tom and Linda for checking in from the islands. While
So nice of you to join us, right?
I would be having a margarita on the beach, but they wanted to come and join us. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Linda.
I wish.
So we need to get together some money to put Skip's plan into action.
So I can work on that. I will come up with a same, spreadsheet type thing that always goes out for each season maintenance, and get some prices from Skip on. Skip has gone to Egypt.
Oh, go ahead. Thanks.
And we got to pay Don back as well. Get him squared away.
Yep. So I'll put up.
I think I want to clarify that. I don't need any payback. That was done in an emergency to make sure that we had access to the rest of the road. That can just go against this year's contribution. I don't need any money back, period. So I just wanted everybody.
Thank you,
to be clear
Don.
on
That's
that.
nice.
No, and I think Bob and Jake both, and I think others were trying to get from me, well, what's your budget? What's your budget? I said, I don't know. We don't have any money right now. So they are willing to work on a budget if that's something that has to be done that way. And that's fine. So
I think we're kind of like losing track sometimes. I make a suggestion. Shouldn't we start to just form a maintenance committee and then let them work on coming up with some suggestions?
And that's kind of what I was getting at a little while ago, was that, we're going to have takeaways. We're going to have things that we need to do. And if we don't have folks on a committee that we can assign those takeaways to, we're going to have to get individuals to volunteer for each of these. So I think I have volunteers for Uta and Linda for Finance Committee.
Who was the other one, Laura?
Uta.
Yeah.
And
you?
Linda.
And who?
Linda.
Oh, Linda.
Yep. So that's good. So that's 3. I like that. And then I think it was Robin and Mike and
Nicole.
3 for admin.
Right.
Yep.
I'll be on the admin too.
Oh, good. Okay. Shirley.
I'll be on the maintenance thing.
Awesome.
I
Okay,
think
Tony.
Who just said that?
Tony Freeman
All right, Tony.
and Heiner.
My husband, John, Tasha, he'll be on maintenance.
Yeah, and I was planning on maintenance.
You should be.
Well, you're going to be driving all the trucks, you and your son.
Paul should be on there too.
Right. And who did you say, John?
Yep, John will help with maintenance.
Yep. All right. Cool. And at the moment for the winter stuff, I have Reese was volunteered.
As long as he's not running around with the chainsaws in the middle of the night, I'm okay with that. I think I may want him up at our property.
Oh, with the chainsaw?
With
Yeah,
the chainsaws, yeah.
we got a few things to clean up.
That was enough to almost get him to jump up off the couch there, so.
All right, cool. So, so I'll work on our kind of task list for Finance Committee, what we need to kind of get together for getting a bank account squared away, getting us all on it, and bells and whistles and all that good stuff. And maybe we can set up a time to meet, discuss Zoom, whatever. And then at the same time, I guess, can our maintenance committee then go back to Oyster River? Or, well, two things. We need to go back to Oyster River and get a revised quote, but then we also need to look into the accessibility of rental equipment and getting the stone so that we can do the hotspots ourselves. Did I miss anything there?
Oh, can you please send me the contact you said, and I get in touch with the guy who did the grading before?
Yes, I will do that. Yep. He was the contractor for Madbury. I'll get his information. And then I had to get, was there something else I was gonna get?
Telephone number for the state to call him.
Oh, we got that.
Oh, yes, we got that. Don sent that out to the group in the message here.
Yeah,
There's
and I
chat.
have it in my notes that I'll be sending out to everyone.
Okay. You'll send out meeting minutes for everybody?
Did you still want to look
Some
at,
notes, but
was
yeah.
it AJ that worked on the road, Laura?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was AJ. Yes. Yeah, I was thinking that, if we came to him as a little bit more serious group that, had a budget and really wanted someone to do repairs and things, I think it was kind of just a loose gentleman's, hey, I'm throwing you a freebie. I'm doing this for you guys for cheap in the past. And so we weren't really a priority. It was just kind of that once a year drag the grader and that was it. So I'm wondering if maybe we approach him with the idea that we're a more cohesive group looking to get things done properly, if he might entertain a little bit better relationship with us. It's worth a try anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
If we put Oyster River, don't they have their own grader? Would we, or do they not?
Well, I think, Don, you said they have one available to them. I don't know if they own one, but
He said he has access to one. He
access.
did not infer that he owned one, so.
So the heavy equipment rental companies that I was checking, two of them had graders in their list of stuff they had. So maybe that's what they do, is they'll just go and rent one. I just noticed it. I didn't go look at prices or anything because I was not planning on renting a grader.
I think before a grader, you need a skidder to lay gravel.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what we were talking about, that we couldn't grade it until we actually have something to grade.
It needs to be gravel first.
Yeah, right.
Right, but we can't just fill the gravel in the potholes, right?
No, that's why we're talking about we need 4 to 6 inches. We probably need at least 3 inches across the whole road before we can get a grader in, and probably 4 to 6. But for this hotspot thing, we would probably put in the bad areas a couple of inches, which would fill in the potholes and make it more stable. And I will also look at the cloth for the really wet areas and see what that's going to take.
I have a question financially. So some of us are in the good situation that we didn't lose our jobs, others have. So what is an amount that we can expect from people that people are comfortable with without being disrespectful to anybody?
We just send what we want and just have a balance if that's the case.
Yeah, I think if we could maybe look at getting $350 or $400 this go round, that would allow us to do the hotspot and have some left over in case a new hotspot shows up.
I think you're more at the
Everybody
$1,000
agreeable
ballpark.
with, or it would be a challenge for the other party?
Say that again.
But I just want to make sure that if we are going with a financial plan, that we are right by everybody.
Well, right. And so once I get the numbers, we get a budget, we start talking to everyone. And I think once we actually have a plan, people will be willing to step up. I mean, some won't, and some will be a fight, and some just can't do it. and we may have to talk about that too.
I think
So-
if we have a concrete number and, we'll send it out like I, historically have, see what we get back for responses, and then we also have to consider, who knows what's going to happen. It seems like even trying to look 2 days into the future is too far. We
Right.
might have flying monkeys and alien spaceships coming soon, who knows? But, we still have to pay for plowing for the winter as well. So just bearing that in mind that, there will be another expense coming up that might be hard to have met, harder this year to meet than has been in the past. So last winter cost us $6,500. I went back to them for some credits here and there for not plowing certain sections of the road. But at the end of the day, we're probably going to be looking at that same kind of a price tag for this coming winter. So just bearing that in mind, that there'll be another, $275, $300 per residence for winter plowing as well. Like I said, for some people that might not change. For me, that happens to be more of a hardship this year. So, I don't know what people are experiencing across the board. But I know that there's, up and, pros. Some people are better off and some people are worse off right now.
Well, yeah, and this is definitely a crazy year. At least we don't have people running around burning down buildings and everything out here. So.
Yeah, no. All right.
Well, I think this was excellent. I think we got quite a bit accomplished, and we have a nice plan moving forward. So I will send out the notes. I will identify people who volunteered for committees, and the 3 committees probably need to set up a meeting just to get your group together and talk about what you want to do next. So I will also send out a suggestion for a meeting for the maintenance committee.
We should set up a meeting, a follow-up meeting for us, everybody.
Well, right, and then I think I would like to put on the admin committee that once we start getting stuff pulled together, that we do another meeting like this again for everyone on the road. And probably we need to do it in the next couple of 3 weeks.
I would prefer that we actually have a date for the meeting so people can prepare for it instead of
work backwards from that, Betty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so
How many showed up for this meeting?
16?
We had
17.
17 we had at one point.
Well, I saw 16 screens, but there are doubles.
Right. I've taken your list, Laura, and I put X's next to everyone who showed up here. So
Okay.
I will
Cool.
send that out as well.
Good.
All right.
I will put in the list of people who were here.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too, to pick a date and then people can plan in advance. So the people that couldn't be here, because it really was a little bit short notice.
Right. So 3 weeks from today is July 1st. July 1st. 4th of July is on a Saturday this year. We have to socially, we have to socially distance from the fireworks. So, so does the 1st sound all right?
Works for me.
That works for me.
July 1st? All right. I will.
That gives us the goal to have everything figured out by. I think that's good.
Yes. Yep.
Hey, you guys all on the Facebook page too? Everybody know about the Facebook page?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not on Facebook.
You're not on Facebook.
He's just not on Facebook.
But Betty
I'm
is. So,
thinking about maybe doing that myself.
Put a notice on that too.
yeah. Well.
Can't
Yeah,
hurt.
we had actually, did anybody, I think I messaged George Hanley sent in a request. I don't know if anybody approved that, but That just came in today, so I went to see if I could find it, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I didn't, so I don't have him listed on our contact list. I don't have specific contact information for him. I can just kind of tag him on there with Anna. It was just a question. Nicole wasn't sure who he was because he's not on our contact list. I had just shot a message asking for his specific contact info so that we'd have maybe another person to contact over there. But I didn't hear back. So, but I just wasn't sure if he had been, I tried to find the request to join and I couldn't find it. So, but yeah, just kind of a nice place to put some of the files, some of the main copies of files, so people don't have to go through their emails looking for them. Just share some neighborly things and, you know, neighborhood kind of stuff, like what you'd maybe, you know, show your neighbor over the fence or whatever. Not a place where we're going to discuss business or, you know, get into politicking or anything, but just kind of like a nice community space for us to kind of share what's going on. If we have something we can offer to the community, you know, things like that. Like, you know, I was thinking once the social distancing thing is over, like I know a lot of people have kids home and stuff like that. They could come over and visit chickens if they want. So I was going to put that out there and, you know, just different stuff like
Balloon
that.
pictures, things like that.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, Laura?
Mhm.
Just an FYI, the phone number you have listed down for Shirley and I isn't ours.
Yes, I got your email. Thank you. It's funny, every time I send this out, I get more things and I feel like, where's is Tony? I feel like I never have your number right. I don't know what happened, but I have yours too. So I will update that again. I do have a few more changes to make to that. So I will update it. I'll send it out and then I'll put it on our Facebook page too. And actually, that'd be a great place to put the meeting minutes too. I can throw those out there too, Skip.
All right, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and put announcements of when fireworks are going off. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Post a picture of your dog. That was
Yeah, everybody's pets.
Yeah.
You can see how our construction is going too. We now have rafters and a roof, almost.
I keep, every time we go by your place, I'm over there. I'm like breakneck trying to see how it's attached to the rest of the house. I'm like, how are they doing it to the
Yeah, come on over sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to check it out. You guys have so much going on over there between your house and the Taylor's house. It's like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, Skip, you mentioned that the whole place is ledge. You wouldn't believe how much ledge we ran into trying to dig that stuff.
Holy moly.
Well,
yeah, we would.
For nothing.
Yeah, we had to bring in a lot of dynamite so we could build our house and put a driveway in.
Oh, you did.
Oh.
So.
Tony had enough ledge to repair the road.
Well, there's that too.
We still have it if you want some.
We
got
need a
lots of
tactical
rocks.
nuke for that.
Yeah, if anybody needs any rocks, we got plenty.
Oh, don't tell my granddaughters that.
Oh, they love collecting rocks.
Oh, no, these are big rocks.
Speaking of big rocks, did the mystery get solved of the big rock? Wasn't
Yeah, somebody said somebody stole their rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did they
Somebody
find it?
stole a rock?
I think what they had this really large rock on their property and they're doing work and the excavator, the person doing the excavation moved it across the street temporarily to do some other landscape work, is my understanding. And then when they went to go back and get the rock, it was missing. So
Those are funny lost and found.
I don't know.
These are sad times when you wind up losing rocks.
Random, and that's a good thing for the Facebook page. Hey, random floating dock going by, does belong to anybody, you know, you're missing a rock or chicken.
That dock's on Paul's yard, and he says, if that's nobody wants that, I'll take it.
Hey, we used a dock for like 3 weeks before somebody finally figured out it was theirs.
Funny. All right. Hey, oh, you know what? I have a question, unrelated to the road, but more towards the pond. Has anybody had difficulty with people going too fast in boats by your property?
Not when I've been out with the girls. Not yet.
They go through the channel pretty fast.
Over here too, it's, they go between the end of John's dock and his raft, which is really technically a no wake zone. And I think it's just folks visiting the campground.
Yeah, it is. We know who they are. We let somebody know at the campground to talk to
The
them.
Marine
Swamp
Patrol
balloons.
once a week lately.
What's that?
The Marine Patrol's been here once a week, so there are some issues out there that they deal with.
He was called here for the red jet ski. I guess he's been going really crazy, but there's a green boat from the campground. I think they're new and I don't think they know to do that, so we informed somebody there to talk to him, just so he knows, because the Marine's gonna be back anyways.
Yeah, I tried to call over to the campground, but they didn't have anybody answering the phone to see if, maybe they could just remind I don't know how it works over there, if they rent the boats or if people dock them there and they own them, but just to kind of give a general reminder that there are people that, live here all year long. And my dog almost got, hit in the water by a boat going by too fast. So I did call over to the state and I said, this has been an ongoing thing, and John and I have talked about maybe roping off between our rafts and things like that. But, I said it's one thing when it's, going a little too fast or maybe creating a little bit of a wake. But, when you're almost hitting a swimming area, that's just unacceptable. So I didn't know if anybody else was having.
My dad, we had property when we were growing up, and my dad had problems with that. And he would take a detergent bottle, kind of like what's holding our raft, and he would just sink them with a rope and a concrete so the people wouldn't come in between.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay.
I mean, it's cheap. It's a rock. It's a cement block. Or one of the extra rocks down there.
Well, there's plenty. Yeah, I like that idea, because we're thinking about how to rope it off and how to put, something, bobbing raft or something, but where the rafts themselves move, then the tautness of the rope changes. So that actually is thank you. That's a good solution. I'm going to try that, because it has been problematic. They just, and I don't understand it. I'm like, you have to squeeze through there. Just common sense would dictate when you've got the rest of the pond available. I don't know.
They got to do what they got to do.
What about, anybody know anything about the plane?
Oh, that thing is cool.
Plane that comes by every once in a while? No,
He's been bombing around a lot.
He was here yesterday.
Oh, seaplane?
I was thinking about that too. What if somebody's swimming? I think last year we landed.
My friend was on kayaks, and she was like, she thought it was gonna land on her.
Oh my gosh, really?
She was so nervous, because she's never seen it before. She's like, I didn't know what he was doing.
I saw him a couple of years ago too, but yeah, I think there's kind of, people treat it like it's Winnipesaukee, but it is kind of cool. But I thought that too when I started. I was like, ooh, what if somebody's out there?
He's friends of someone on the lake.
Is he?
He's a good friend of one of the people on the lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we used to have them come in all the time, because someone, where Don's house is, house before, had a plane. That's how he used to commute up there.
Oh, wow.
I used to want Skip to get a pilot's license just so we could fly to my parents' house instead of have to drive 5 hours.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Okay, we all good?
I'm heading out. Nice to see you all.
I think
You
we're
guys
good.
too. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for all the work.
Thank you so much.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.